Bonsoir. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi there, everybody, again, for our Wednesday evening Bible study. I'm Nigel, and I'm the rector of the French Church of Saint-Esprit.
I'm Joris. I'm the curate at the French Church du Saint-Esprit as well. Tonight, we're going to continue our Bible studies on the Gospel of Luke. Nous allons continuer notre étude biblique sur l'évangile de Luc. If you're joining us, don't hesitate to say hi in the chat or interact with us too through the chat box there next to the video. Tonight we're going to have a look at Luke chapter 17, yes, 17 and 11 to 19. Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
17.
So it's Luke 17 if you want to look it up in your own Bibles. Well, you'll see it in a minute.
Yeah. But we start with a prayer. O blessed God, who caused all Holy Scripture to be written for our learning, grant us so to hear them, read, mark, learn, and inwardly digest them, that we may embrace and hold fast the blessed hope of everlasting life, which you have given us in our Saviour, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So we're going to read three versions of this, as we normally do, from the New Revised Standard Version updated in English, then in the Nouvelle Version Française, so in French, obviously, and then a paraphrase from The Message, which is a modern translation in English. And as we're reading, if something leaps out to us, just pop it in the chat if you'd like to, or just say hello in the chat if you want to do that. We always keep half an eye on there and try to respond to everything if we can. So we're going to begin with Luke 17, 11 to 19. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God, except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well."
Maintenant, dans la Nouvelle Français courant. Tandis que Jésus faisait route vers Jérusalem, il passa le long de la frontière qui sépare la Samarie de la Galilée. Il entrait dans un village quand 10 lépreux vinrent à sa rencontre. Ils se tinrent à distance et se mirent à crier, « Jésus, Maître, prends pitié de nous !» Jésus les vit et leur dit, « Allez vous faire examiner par les prêtres. » Pendant qu'ils y allaient, ils furent purifiés de leur lèpre. L'un d'entre eux, quand il vit qu'il était guéri, revint sur ses pas en louant Dieu à haute voix. Il se jeta aux pieds de Jésus, face contre terre, et le remercia. Or, cet homme était un Samaritain. Jésus dit alors, « Qu'est-ce que les 10 ? Est-ce que 10 n'ont pas été guéris ? Où sont les 9 autres ? Il ne s'est trouvé personne pour revenir remercier Dieu, sinon cet étranger ?» Puis Jésus lui dit, « Relève-toi et va, ta foi t'a sauvé. »
And here we are in the modern paraphrase of the Message. It happened that as he made his way toward Jerusalem, he crossed over the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men, all lepers, met him. They kept their distance, but raised their voices, calling out, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." Taking a good look at them, he said, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." They went, and while still on their way, became clean. One of them, when he realized that he was healed, turned around and came back, shouting his gratitude, glorifying God. He kneeled at Jesus' feet, so grateful. He couldn't thank him enough, and he was a Samaritan. Jesus said, "Were not 10 healed? Where are the 9? Can none be found to come back and give glory to God, except this outsider?" Then he said to him, "Get up, on your way. Your faith has healed and saved you." Well, there are the 3 readings. If there's anything that struck us there, might just be one word or a turn of the thing or something that we've always thought about this story. This is the moment to have a little think of it after all 3 versions of the readings. Anything stand out for you, Joris, in that?
Well, I've been working on this text for 2 days now.
Yes.
But something that stood out is that Jesus doesn't say, go to Jerusalem to be healed or go to the priest to be healed, because it might not be in Jerusalem actually. But it just says to them who didn't even say what they were looking for. We see, they're lepers that just say, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." He just says, "Go, show yourself to the priest." So it seems to be kind of like there's something missing in between, you see.
Yes.
Taking a good look at them, but yeah, it's interesting. There's no, it doesn't explain. Yes, it doesn't explain. Say, okay, go show yourself to the priest, and they'll figure out that you don't have, there's like a gap, something.
Yes. Something that struck me, and I'd been sort of looking at it and thinking about it, but there's always something that strikes us, perhaps. I don't know. For me, it was the fact that it was a mixed group of people. So it was Samaritans and Jews, maybe some Greeks. I don't know who they were. But their affliction made them a group.
Yeah, yeah.
So they were all outcasts, but they were going around together.
Yeah.
Just reminds me of some other situations today when people sometimes transcend their normal, if we can call them that, differences or their deep-seated prejudices of one sort or another, if they're united together in oppression and exclusion.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, do you have any thoughts yourself? Don't hesitate to put them on the chat if something struck you as we read these 3 translations. Yeah. Well, we'll begin our study by reading and having a look at the questions that the Episcopal Church recommends. These are questions that usually come at the end of reflections every year. So these are collected over a few years. So the first one is, what intervention of God in your life causes you to return singing? Does he sing? He doesn't sing.
I don't know. He sings praising God in loud voice. Okay. Is the word praising used there? Does it imply that he might be singing something?
So, yeah, let's think about that. Causes you to return singing.
Return where?
Yeah.
Back to God, back to Jesus, back to church.
Yeah.
I know. Well.
Do you remember to thank God for the good gifts he has given you? How can you practice this thankfulness today?
It's always worth coming back to, I suppose.
Yeah. What is the difference between the one thankful man who was saved and the other 9 whom Jesus made clean?
Well, that's a funny question, because that's something else that struck me when we were reading it. Yeah. They weren't immediately healed when Jesus said, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." It sounded from the reading that they were healed on the way.
Yeah.
So there must have been some sort of trust of all 10 of them.
Yeah.
To leave Jesus and go and show themselves, unless it was just an abrupt thing with Jesus saying that
Or they were
to get rid of them. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's... And do they all go to the same priest, or do they go to different priests?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't know.
We don't know. Anyway, it's probably nothing to do with that question there. But
no, but the
explore
striking
it.
thing is that the only one, the text, he says like it's made you well. So are the others only clean but not saved? You see?
Yeah.
Because this whole point of cleanliness is, as we see, it's not healing. The word here used is cleansed. It's not healed. So there's also a whole certain ambiguity here, because it's about ritual cleanliness and reintegration within the community, which is also a religious community. But it's not specifically about... it's not the term used for healing from a disease.
No, and it's the word in English and sauver in French probably has an overlay of doctrine to it now
Yes,
that
exactly.
it didn't have at the time. Yeah.
Have you witnessed the faithful gratitude of someone who has been marginalized and has had their dignity restored?
Yeah, certainly.
Faithful.
Yes, especially in the context of a church where people who have been marginalized for one reason or another, no matter what it is, have been given dignity that is quite visible in church.
Yeah, I think of the work of ATD Fourth World too.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, let's think about it as we go along.
Well, here we are with a map. And as you can see, there's something rather curious. People always think that Samaria is just in the north there, and Judea is in the south. But Galilee is actually north of Samaria. So why are there what we might call Orthodox Jews, loosely speaking, that far north? You know? Well, this Samaria that's there in the middle of our map is this sort of symbolic place of rejection in the New Testament. It's sort of a community of foreigners, but these foreigners are interesting in Samaria. They were the sort of rump leftover of the Jews or the Hebrews who had not been forced into exile following the Assyrian invasion. And because of that, they carried on with some practices that were pre-Babylonian exile. So much of the Jewish faith, as it was known in Jesus' time, was formed in the Babylonian exile, but the Samaritans were never formed that way. They still worshipped God on Mount Gerizim. They were still sort of the leftover of the northern kingdom of Israel rather than the southern kingdom of Judah. And you can see here they wouldn't receive Jesus because his face was set toward Jerusalem, not Mount Gerizim, where they worshipped. Not because, they didn't like Jerusalem because they were Jerusalem was trying to boss them into being just like the southern kingdom of Judea. They wanted to keep their old traditions. They thought that they were correct. They were derived from the united kingdom of Israel and Judah, and from their own traditions that they felt that they'd kept very faithfully after the Assyrian catastrophe. But a quick explanation here. This region of Galilee wasn't actually fully depopulated by the Assyrians. They were more interested in the plain of Jezreel. It was richer. It was right around there in Samaria. The northern kingdom of Israel had always been richer than the southern kingdom of Judah. But that area, being a little further north there, it wasn't fully depopulated in 722 BC. So by the 1st century BC, 600 years later, Jewish rulers from the south had reasserted control over that region, and they'd re-Judaized it by promoting settlement there by Jews who were loyal to Jerusalem. So they all, it was a settlement program of the kings in Jerusalem that turned the area where Jesus was born into a sort of little area of what we would call sort of mainstream Pharisee, Sadducee type Judaism. Does that make sense?
It's interesting when you see that these migrations are in the very story of Jesus' birth. He was born in Bethlehem, and then they have to go to Nazareth. And you see that's also something that you see in the Hebrew Bible, when the patterns of migration between this part of the Eastern Mediterranean and Egypt were extremely well documented in archaeological digs too. You see people crossing over and migrations through this territory has been going on for
many thousands of years.
Yes, many thousands of years. So you see also the current political situations with all these borders that have been set between different parts of Palestine-Israel region are very much going against this historical exchanges that have always existed.
Well, Galilee here, as we've just explored, is the home of the Israelites. It's the sort of starting point of Jesus' public life. So he moved up to Nazareth there. We hear about him in Capernaum at the beginning of Luke's Gospel and in other Gospels too. So we can see in Luke chapter 4, right at the very beginning, Jesus, filled with the power of the Spirit, returned to Galilee, and a report about him spread through all the surrounding country. And he began to teach in their synagogues. We have the first story there in Luke's Gospel of Jesus opening the scroll of Isaiah, and he was praised by everyone. So as you can see from the map, there was no avoiding going through Samaria to get to Jerusalem. There's only one way through there. So Jesus is constantly seeming to be walking this borderline between these two dissimilar communities. They were dissimilar. They worshipped Yahweh and everything, but with very different traditions. So the two very much divided peoples, a bit like Northern and Southern Ireland, or something along those Korea, something along those lines. So he's sort of pressing here to close this rift between these historically divided peoples.
That's very interesting, because we see that it's the first mention in the passage we read. As he was walking along the border between, or either crossing or walking along the border between Galilee and Samaria. But we'll see that all the characters actually also embody these different borders, and this probably a lot of tensions that were related to this difference in identities. So here are the persons involved in our passage. You have the lepers. These are people who are physically ill, but also socially exiled. So once again, you see the question of borders, of being outsiders. Jesus, of course, who here appears as the cleanser, the healer, who bridges the gap between the clean and the unclean. And you have the priests, who are gatekeepers of purity, who can reintegrate the excluded after they've scrutinized, they've had a thorough look, according to the Mosaic law, of their blemish or the absence of it, and are able through a ritual, as we'll see, to reintegrate them. So they are actually, they're not directly present in the story, but they're referred to. And so Jesus is sending the people who are coming to him to them. And there are witnesses, the silent onlookers, representing society's distance as well. And because we have this report, and Jesus enters a village, so you can imagine a crowd also coming along, and these people being at the margin also of the community, on the outskirts of the village. Yeah. Here you have the detail of a mosaic in the Cathedral of Monreale in Sicily. It's quite beautiful, and it's
It is.
That's what he says. Ostendite vos sacerdotibus. Show yourself to the priests. Yeah.
So like the hands
Yes.
in it. Yeah.
It's the-
And evening, Rhonda, and hi there, Anna.
Yeah.
Nice to see you pop up. Yeah.
And you see the disciples are depicted here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little cluster.
Yeah. And the city sits outside of the
Yes.
city.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's interesting because it's very wavy here.
Yeah. This Greek word lepra in the Bible, we tend to jump to the conclusion that it must be Hansen's disease. Leprosy has got this new name now to slightly destigmatize it. It's not as catching as people tend to believe. It still exists, still happening in some unexpected places. But this Greek word lepra doesn't necessarily refer to Hansen's disease. So when we read the story, we think, well, did their fingers grow back again? Or did their noses grow back again? Or did their feet grow back again? But that's sort of leaping to a conclusion about what they were in fact suffering from. So lepra refers to this very variable range of visible skin conditions. Other diseases in the ancient world were not visible, but skin diseases certainly were. And this would make people ritually impure rather than sort of medically contagious. I've included here a little photograph of the Ebers papyrus. It's the oldest medical text in existence, dates from about 1550 BC. And in it, as you can see, there are some of these hieratic script in red that's describing some of these diseases. And you can see that it includes smallpox, it includes skin tumours and ulcers and dermatosis, impetigo, a whole range of different diseases. But the interesting thing about this Ebers papyrus is not only do they give medical suggestions about how they can be cured, they're accompanied by magical spells that expel whatever evil demon is causing this sort of disturbance. And this is specifically in the section of this papyrus dealing with skin diseases. So disease across the ancient Near East, including in Judea and Palestine, this carries a deep religious and social stigma, not because people are necessarily frightened of catching it, although that might be part of it, but it's a sign of divine punishment in a way, moral failure, or the divine allowing somebody to get something like that and look that way. So it's a contaminating thing, not just because of our modern ideas of medicine. It's a contaminating thing because a person with that sort of visible illness is bringing into a community the spirit that provoked the illness in the first place.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And you imagine that also certain disease, will create rash, which implies blood. Blood is also associated to impurity. So they are very, it's very interesting to see that it's not always what we imagine or what religious images have depicted as being leper, right? Leprosy. So in the Israelite society, as Nigel says, the laws of Leviticus treated leprosy or these various forms of skin disease really primarily as a matter of ritual purity. It's not understood as hygiene. Hygiene is a 1800s invention, really. The concern was to protect the holiness of the community and the worship space, because purity impurity was a form of disruption of the order, of the likeness of the creatures to their creator, a disruption of God's presence amongst the people. And you think also, we're thinking about that too regarding this text, but the first thing that God does after Adam and Eve's fall is that he gives them skins. So I think there's a whole they're naked and he gives them skin. So it's ambiguous. Does he make like clothes out of skins, or does he actually give them skins? It's or the word in Hebrew. And so there's this whole question of like, while they're being healed, and throughout this text, Jesus gives them back their skin. Just so he has this same creative, recreative attitude as God the Maker when he sees Adam and Eve who are totally vulnerable and who have been deceived and are there hiding and covering themselves, outcast in the sight of God, and he provides for them. And here you have the same thing, or around the same skin, literally, the same reality.
It's nice.
So lepers suffered as much from social exclusion as from their illness, which would be, I imagine, more or less difficult to bear. Here you see Job on the dunghill afflicted with leprosy. So that's really considered part of the downfall of poor Job, who was this very just man. Here you see the demon as part of the affliction. Scratching them. The blue here is amazing, though.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Such an intense colour.
Yeah. So leprosy, as I said, is mentioned in the Bible, especially around all the regulations of the Levitical law, that is the laws. That's a book really meant for the priests to kind of figure out how to serve God and respect all the rules that God has set to worship Him according to what He demands. So the Levitical law required that those afflicted publicly announce their uncleanliness. And so that's the quote from Leviticus. "The person who has the leprous disease shall wear torn clothes and let the hair of the head be disheveled, and he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, 'Unclean, unclean.' He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp."
I included just that little picture down there. It's recently been more thoroughly translated. It's a fragment of a clay tablet from the very famous library of Ashurbanipal, who was one of the most famous kings of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, about the time when northern Israel fell to the Assyrians. It's describing once again skin diseases and the conditions around them and the sort of demons that cause them.
That's interesting. So their cry on this day to Jesus is interesting, because they say, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." It's more than just an announcement of uncleanliness. They have to announce themselves, say unclean, unclean. But here they don't say that directly. They say, "Have mercy on us." Their call is not one of self, disclosure. It's one of calling on to God as a prayer. It's a plea for compassion, and they respect the rules of the Mosaic law of the Leviticus. They live outside the limits of the village, just like it says outside the camp, and they're in this marginal place, which is really shaped by ritual laws of impurity. And they're also out of sight of the whole community. They're also out of their mind in a way, and that really mirrors their exclusion. Exclusion that works in all ages and today as well. For everybody who is marginalized, people tend to not think of them actually. And here you have this group of people who are really at the margins. And do you want to say something about this painting?
No, not necessarily. I found it. It's by a man called Brian Whelan. It was commissioned in 2021. But I rather like the way people are facing. It's Jesus, obviously, in the middle. One of the lepers here is carrying a bell to announce their uncleanliness. That's not part of the Levitical law, but you can see they're shouting out for that mercy. not unclean, unclean, but Master, have mercy on us. And I like the position of the grateful leper, who seems to be sort of on the verge of tears of thankfulness. But I also like the dancing lepers in the background, who are sort of going on their way.
And the dove.
And the dove.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful. I was quite moved by that. And the priests on the right with the little conical hats, and a sacrificial goat lurking to one side.
Yeah, he also reminded me, after we made the slides, but of this story. I think any Hebrew or any person in the first century who was reading this text was also thinking of another text immediately, the story of Naaman and the healing. So Naaman is a general, I think, of the army.
That's right.
Syrian army. He's a Syrian himself, so a foreigner again, who has this skin disease as well. And so he's impure, and he sends out to the king of Israel because he's heard that there's a prophet there through a slave girl, an Israeli Jewish Israeli slave girl that's serving him. He's heard about the fact that there is someone who might be able to heal him in Israel. So he sends out to the king, and the king says, well, I'm not quite sure what you're doing like this. He was a bit worried about, this foreign
diplomatic incident, not being able to give the king of Syria or the general, a dangerous general, what he was asking for. It was a tyrannical, unfulfillable request.
Yes, totally. And so he's very much worried about that, but the person who is able to help him is Elisha. And just like this text, there is no direct contact between Elisha and Naaman, the Syrian, and Jesus and this man, and this whole group of men, actually, who are suffering from skin disease. So if you read it back, it's in like 2 Kings. I can't remember the chapter.
No, I can't.
But you'll see there are striking similarities between them. And Naaman as well, once he's healed, returns. And there's the exact same word in Greek, which is upetrepsein, I think, which is he turned back and worshipped the God of Israel and realized that salvation was coming from the God of Israel. Just like this man who was also a foreigner, this Samaritan, comes back, not to the priests maybe of Israel, but to Jesus himself, who is a form of new priesthood, who is embodying the renewed priesthood. There are really striking similarities, because the command that Jesus gives them as well is just go show yourself to the priests. And Elisha just gives this weird command that's go to and wash yourself in River Jordan.
Yes.
And of course the Syrian is upset, because it's like, why should I wash myself in that river?
Dirty little stream.
Yes, when there are many beautiful rivers in Syria. But in all cases, you have this kind of distant healing in both texts, and that's definitely a key, as we often see when we read the Bible, reading a text through another text as a commentary, and try to reconcile the two and reconcile what it means. It's often very, very helpful. Yeah.
So what are the lepers actually doing then out there? First of all, we've noticed very strikingly that they're not just wandering around saying unclean, unclean when Jesus and the disciples come near. They call Jesus by name. They say, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And this Master title is used elsewhere only by the disciples. So it's very striking that this group of lepers, if we want to call them that, use the name of Jesus in this, and not just Master or whatever. So we can see that from that there's the 10 are recognizing his authority. Not just calling him by name, they're giving him a title as well. Yeah. It's a sort of double appeal.
Yeah.
They're definitely staying at a distance. They're observing the purity laws, most certainly. They weren't allowed to go up and touch them or anything, Jesus or his disciples. So they were definitely obeying these purity laws, Samaritans or not, Greeks or not. We don't exactly know the racial makeup of the pack of 10, but certainly they were observing the purity laws by staying clear, but they were also expressing their faith, or maybe even their trust. Maybe they'd heard about this miracle worker. So their faith or their trust in what Jesus could do for them is clear from this. It's interesting that we've got this number 10, though, because we can probably think of other examples where we've got the number 10 in Hebrew scriptures, and it's often signifies a sort of completeness or a totality, like the 10 commandments or the 10 plagues sent on to the Egyptians by Moses and Aaron. So perhaps here in this particular story, these 10 stand for the whole of humanity. We all stand before God in need of mercy. We are all exiles outside the heavenly city, the celestial city. We're all in need of mercy and a pass to get back in.
Yeah, outside the camp.
Yeah, nice picture there. Yes, as we can see, this little Rembrandt sketch of the returning leper. As we've seen, Jesus is on this final journey to Jerusalem that's taking him from Galilee through Samaria down to Jerusalem, and that's why the Samaritans don't like him, because he's going to the wrong mountain. So we can see when the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. It's something of a pivotal point in Luke's gospel. So clearly he's nearing the climax of his ministry. And this interesting story here in Luke is that it shows that he's not just healing bodies or casting out demons and teaching. He's healing divisions between deeply divided people as well. And that's very clear from this story and from other little glimpses in Luke's
the teachings that led also to the story that we've been seeing over the last few weeks now in the Gospel of Luke. Yeah. So it's definitely it's also interesting how these whole miracles are deployed, because his miracle crosses boundaries, purity boundaries in many ways, but without violating the law. So it's a form of sign of a fulfillment of the new covenant that he brings. Now, another set of characters that we've mentioned are the priests. Their role and symbolism is quite important in this passage, because Jesus instructs the lepers to go and show themselves to the priests. So who are these priests? Well, it's not quite sure. They're definitely priests of the Mosaic law from Jesus' perspective, but did the Samaritan go to a Samaritan priest, right? So in all cases, this follows Mosaic law, which prescribed that there is a priestly inspection after healing. So when he was saying that, go and show yourself to the priests, he was already telling them something that you can only do, it's like as if he was telling them, go to the pharmacy before they've even seen the doctor, you see. And so it's a bit the same thing, in a sense. He's already telling them that you have to do something that's prefiguring, foreshadowing what's going to happen. Yeah. So the law said that this shall be the law for the leprous person at the time of his cleansing. He shall be brought to the priest shall go out of the camp, and the priest shall make an examination. Which is interesting because Jesus has played both roles here. He is outside of the camp himself, so he is doing the examination in a certain way. And the text, I think, said he looked at them.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So there is ambiguity here. who are the true priests? Who is the priest? The priest is Jesus, as you see, as well. So priests really acted as purity inspectors. They were determining who was clean or wasn't clean. You can see all the details about that. I think it's in Leviticus 14, 15. And they were almost like custom agents between the world of purity and sanctity, the ritual sanctity, and which was also meant belonging to the whole community, and the outside world, which was a place of exclusion, where we saw there was some form of community, but it was not the same community. There could be also like Samaritans, for instance, had their own thing that were not fully, as we see in other stories of Jesus interacting with Samaritans, they didn't want to have any contact as well with them. So there's really a double inclusion there in this story. There's not only the fact that he is a leper, but also the fact that he is a Samaritan. So these priests, they held the authority to alter a person's life, basically by the declaration of purity or not purity. You see how they would be dressed according to the book of Leviticus as well. Yeah.
They were certainly at the top of the pyramid of purity. You couldn't be a priest if you were disfigured in any way whatsoever,
or maimed,
or you couldn't enter into the Holy of Holies unless you had been kept in ritual purity.
Yeah, there was very much this image that the body had to be intact also to mimic God's Anyway, so there's this thing that we mentioned, healing. Well, I'm not sure the word healing is very cleansing at a distance for sure, because Jesus does not touch the lepers, so the cleansing happens as they go, which is an interesting image too, because the miracle involves appeal when they call out, cry out to Jesus, the pronouncement of Jesus, which is not, direct pronouncement. He doesn't say, "You healed now, go in peace." He says, "Do that." And then you have the response, the response in faith of the group who does go, and an extra bit of faith of this man who actually, as soon as he realizes what happened to him, he decides to go back. And he returns, exactly, that's the word in Greek, and he goes to Jesus and worships him. So there is definitely something happening there in this play on distance too. We've seen that there's an importance of like boundaries, but also an importance of distance and gap. Yeah.
I like that particular picture because there are two or maybe three women.
Yeah.
We tend to assume it must be 10 men.
Yeah, I think the text says men.
The text probably says men. Yes.
But I didn't look up if it's, I don't know if it's Aner. I think it's Aner. Yeah.
Aner, as opposed to the anthropos thing.
So it's a contemporary, inclusive reading.
Exactly.
So the Samaritan's reaction there is really interesting because it kind of seems that he reveals it in passing. He's not mentioned it. Luke hasn't mentioned it before. He doesn't say, there was a group and amongst them was a Samaritan. And then the Samaritan showed up. It's like they all went, and one of them, a Samaritan, came back. His response is strikingly personal also and full of faith. Then he says, then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. So the one you see who according to a Jewish mind of the time, would not worship in the good direction because he would not look to Jerusalem. And you remember the whole passage started with as he was facing himself and going to Jerusalem.
Yes.
So Jesus is going to Jerusalem, where he's going to be killed, when he's going to die, when he's not going to be worshipped. And he encounters these people who are suffering, and he tells them to go and show themselves to the priests. And some of them do go. That is in the direction you imagine there would be. Even if it's not Jerusalem, it's in the sense of the Mosaic law.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of them doesn't go in that direction, but comes back to Jesus himself. So it's really showing, building on this thing that you see in the gospel, of course, that Jesus is the new temple. That's the new temple that's set, that's not the temple in Jerusalem. It's a new temple that will be outside the city walls, as we see when he's killed on the cross. Yeah. So there's ethnic and religious barrier compound that very much part of the drama, as we've said, yet only one returns. And by falling at Jesus' feet, he does what the other do not do. He also closes the gap between Jew and Samaritan. The other one, it's not mentioned whether they're Jews or Samaritan. And he also gives thanks to God and to Jesus himself, treating really him, Jesus, as the temple and the priest he is supposed to see in that context. Because we don't know if he after went to see a priest.
No.
The text doesn't say. So in a sense, that's interesting because he disobeys to Jesus as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Or he disobeys to the law.
Maybe so. Yes. Yeah.
Because
he doesn't sort of prove his cleanliness in a ritual way.
Yeah.
That was prescribed by the law.
Yes. So there's a kind of something subversive here in the text of Luke. We think, Luke says and Jesus says, follow exactly the Leviticus law. But since this one man comes back, it's more subtle than that. And what's really striking too is that the outsider in this passage becomes, just like we see many, many times again and again in Luke, the model of faith. And Jesus' question is really interesting. Was one of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? So the word foreigner, and you remember the story of Naaman, who was himself a foreigner in the second book of Kings.
It's just, I think we've got this coming up in a slide, but they're going back to show themselves to the priest. They're clearly delighted that they're healed, but this one leper comes back to Jesus with gratitude.
Yeah.
And gratitude as a response to healing, rather than now I've got to do what the law says I've got to do as a response to healing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think and he enters in a relationship, whereas the other ones enter into a system. I think that's probably also one of the big difference. And Jesus is doing both as he walks to Jerusalem. He's entering in the belly of the sea monster in many ways, and he is also there to be fully an offering himself. So that's really, as you said, Nigel, there's like you see through this coming back of this one man who is an outsider himself, this sense of gratitude and the fact that he whose cultural background doesn't recognize the God of Israel, recognize Jesus. And there's a recognition of God in Jesus in that moment. It's not about religion. It's not about clericalism, showing yourself to the priest, or ritual alone. These are not the things that save you. I think that's what this is. Not your ethnic identity. It's not if you do properly the little things that you're supposed to do according to your moralistic religion, or it's not because you follow all the clerical rules or the ritual rules. Salvation and faith have to do with something that's much more interpersonal and embodied and comprehensive than that. I kind of like this painting by James Christensen. He's a 20th century. He just died, I think, a few years ago. It's quite You see them with all their brolock, and this one man who turns back
Yes.
and just looks at his hand.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
It's
some
interesting because
moment of
some of them
recognition.
here you see are looking at each other's hands, so it suggests that they are noticing and they are praising here, so they're noticing that something is happening to them, but they still go towards the system.
Yes, that's right.
You see,
Yeah.
whereas this one is like stopped. So there's a moment of epiphany for him. That's not just about himself or the system.
It's a good point, though, that then the other 9 are not condemned.
No.
Jesus says, did none of them come back?
Yeah.
But they were obedient, but not grateful to the one who had healed them, or at least not in a way that caused them to turn.
They listen to a
separate
command.
themselves from the group and go.
Yes, that's also what it is. They listen to an order, but they didn't love the person. There's something like this. I find there's something about they didn't treat him as a person in many ways too. If they didn't come back to him.
No.
You see?
But it's funny too, because you would have thought that there was a big solidarity between the 10 who'd probably been hanging out for quite some time together, and then suddenly there's a solidarity in this miraculous healing. They wanted just to get on with it. But I like this painting because he's turning back.
Yeah.
He's leaving that group, healed as they might be, to go back to Jesus.
Yeah. And they all look quite enthusiastic, you
Yes,
see, and he looks a bit
Awestruck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find this painting is really embodying a lot of the tensions of the... And they're in movement, and he stopped.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So he's the one who acknowledges,
So the 9, as we've just seen, that they acknowledge the fact that they're healed, but they don't recognize the giver of the healing in the same way as the one does. Where's the source of this healing? We're glad that we can get back to life as normal.
Yeah. Yes. Thinking about the pandemic and other things, but business as usual.
Yes. Yeah. So sometimes we might seek for the blessings, but when those blessings come, we forget what a pickle we were in before we got them, and therefore we forget to trace them back to where they came from, back to the true source of all blessing, of all life, of all healing, of all reconciliation to each other and to God too.
Yeah, and the Samaritan also, is a very unlikely person to turn back and to recognize the source of life. I mean, what I find fascinating is that the giver of life is decentered himself. It's Jesus. It's not the center of authority. There's this clash that's built up in the gospel between who has authority. Is it the religious institution? Is it the religious leaders? Or is it Jesus? And here you see that the center is Jesus. And Jesus is going to the religious center, but it's going to mean that he's going to die and be risen. But that's the place where something will happen. And here you have this Samaritan who really shows that it's this decentering eye that teaches the whole readers and the people around who were witnesses to give thanks for what others take for granted.
Yes,
really.
that's right.
So really you see that the faith, the gratitude of this man transcends all the traditional boundaries between Jews and Samaritans, between pure and impure, between insider and outsider as well.
We can also see, as Joris has pointed out, this fulfilling of what Leviticus does, but in the person of Christ, the new temple.
High priest,
The new high priest. So the priest, as we can see, goes outside the camp according to Leviticus 14, and Jesus comes out to us to cleanse us, to encounter us outside the city walls in his death on the cross, outside those city walls of Jerusalem. So there's a going out.
Yeah, that's very much what the letter to the Hebrews developed when it talks about Jesus who came from the Father into the world to bring us back to the Father, and here you have within this little scene in a village this reality, prophetic reality of what Jesus, who Jesus is, embodied here. And the whole of Jesus' ministry is encapsulated in this encounter with this outsider, outside, and calling back to him. Yeah. Now the Leviticus 14 is extremely detailed about the ritual that the priest has to do to reintegrate the person whose blemish or whose skin disease or leprosy has been healed. There's a whole ritual. And this ritual is also kind of associated symbolically to Jesus' work and ministry. It includes 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop. So all of these are things that you see popping up in the crucifixion itself. Well, the 2 birds, I guess you could interpret them differently, but there's a sacrifice. One is sacrifice, 1 bird is killed, so it can be Jesus' death, and 1 bird is set free, which can embody Jesus' resurrection for sure. The bird that's set free is also dipped in the blood of the other bird. So it's set free, it's going free, but with the mark of the blood of the other one, which is very much an image. I'm sure Nita, if she were here, would like it very much. An image through a bird of Jesus' resurrected body. And so Christ's resurrection and our freedom sends also the lepers away. He's just like this this bird, basically. Jesus outside a camp has sends away this man again on his road, and it's the birds in that case is the leper is the healed person is sprinkled 7 times, complete, which mimics also in the crucifixion narrative the sprinkling of Jesus' blood, and then the person is like fully reintegrated within the community, and you see that Leviticus 14 is very much the background of this whole scene, because that's the same place that we're talking about, outside the camp, outside the village. Encounter between someone who is sick and wants reintegration, and a priestly figure who is Jesus himself. Yeah.
This is where we come to this interesting point about Jesus saying, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." This little Greek word sozo, your faith has saved you or made you whole. A link in English between whole and holy is worth bearing in mind, maybe. So we can see that this faith that Jesus recognizes in the one who returns and expresses gratitude, these 2 things have converged into what Jesus might be calling sozo. So your faith has saved you. So it's faith and gratitude together, not just this restoration of health, saying, "Gosh, what an amazing wonder worker."
Yeah.
But this sort of healing of relationship, because he returns and does something that healthy, happy, integrated relationships do, and that's to be thankful for those around us. So we have a healing not just of his physical infirmity, but a healing here of his relationship and his identity. There's a wholeness to this healing that isn't simply a physical restoration.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is very clear from Jesus' words and from the one who is grateful for it. So there we can see that the Samaritan, he receives more than just a cleansing. He receives a sort of wholeness of life. It becomes for us the model of a true worshipper.
Yeah. So we might think, well, what all the spiritual takeaway of this situation? We see the role of Jesus as priest, or the importance of how, of course, we can relate to Jesus in ways that doesn't match religious, clerical, or institutional setups. You see, this text is really playing with all this. What we identify as being the good religious way that leads to holiness, right? And you hear it from Jesus' mouth himself. He gives commands that are, but then there's something else that happens, and people who are sometimes likely to be embodiment of this conversion are the one who actually come back to Jesus and recognize him and recognize the relationship and the gift that they've received from him. So there's a lot at play in this text in the end. You see that there's a form of dimension of obedience, but obedience is not everything. Obedience to, a verse of scripture is not faith, you see. Obedience to one command of one person is not faith. Faith, if it's just obedient, it's dead. And it's just like the word kill, but spirit gives life. And obedience is fulfilled in gratitude and interpersonal relationship with a living God, with a living God who is giving himself for us. Jesus on that passage is on his way to surrender and give himself to God, and by suffering. And so there's this dimension of interpersonal relationship with God and others that's the pattern of obedience, I find. If you only relate to things, you end up being submitted to things, or to ideas, or to best practices. You end up being submissive to things. Whereas what we're talking about as Christian faith and relationship with God, we're talking about something that's extremely interpersonal, that's extremely relational through prayer, which is relational through the life within a community, that's relational through engaging with the whole community of saints, through reading, through watching videos sometimes, but definitely engaging with realities beyond what seems to be just, this is this way, not the other way. So it's a freedom, of a capacity to engage also in the way we've just done, actually. Being able to read different texts together, being able to hold on different stories. This is how you can hear the word of God, because obedience, the word obedience is actually means listening. The one who obeys, there's the same audition, the edience in it is the same root as audition. So there is a dimension of hearing, but the thing is that you can't, just like a word doesn't mean anything if it's just one letter. Well, it's the same thing with a scripture, with the word of God. You need the whole text, and you need more. You need the context to be able to understand his word. And this context is not only a biblical context, it's a whole cultural context, as we saw. It's a whole historical context. It's a whole personal and spiritual context. Personal, being able to engage with the whole of ourselves, just like this man too. So healing is really a gift from beyond ourselves. And this beyond ourselves doesn't mean just some extraterrestrial reality or invisible realities. It's invisible, but it's around us. It's our contexts, it's our communities, it's our life, it's our relations, it's our history, it's the people who sustain and support us, whose life we can experience through scripture, whose life we can experience through reading about it, hearing about it. Witnesses of people can really be gifts that help us heal as well.
We live in such a therapeutic-minded community. Everything is healable. Everything is fixable. You've just got to want it for yourself and do the work.
Yeah.
And this story isn't that.
No.
It's a plea for mercy,
Yeah.
a healing that comes from outside, and a return in gratitude.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can beat ourselves up because we feel we haven't overcome something because we haven't worked hard enough at it, something that is excluding us from others, whether that's addiction or whatever else it might be. There's a recognition, as in the 12-step program, that something has to come from the outside. It's not all.
Yes, it's not like your own following and beating yourself up to fit into the rule. There's something way more wholesome and holistic than that, I find.
I like the fact that this gratitude thing opens your eyes to the giver behind the gift, and that's it's not just thank you very much. There's an orientation of the heart in this, and the interesting thing about what Jesus says about salvation here, your faith has made you whole or saved you, is that if you come back to what you have been given and you express gratitude for it, you're looking twice at the same thing. Once you feel, yes, that's lovely, but then you're consciously thinking of it. You're pushing it out, forward. It gets an expression. And in the case of the Samaritan, he fell in front of Jesus to express his thanks. So you look twice at the same thing, not just at your healed hands, but go back to look at the source of the healing. And suddenly when you look twice with a grateful heart, consciously grateful heart, you're going to see something that you didn't initially see.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know we're getting to Thanksgiving with the whole American thing around, being grateful and stuff like that. There's also kind of a performance. There might be a performance about that. And here it's not this at all in this text, Maybe these other, others are going to be, they're falling into the system way of acknowledging their healing and all of these type of things. They're going to maybe be expressing some form of gratitude that disconnected from this deep interpersonal reality, which is not merely emotional.
No, I don't think so.
It's an attitude of worship. It's not an attitude of happiness or elation. He might have actually been quite distraught when he came to Jesus. I mean, he's definitely on his knees, So it's not always what we imagine to be, gratitude. Gratitude is something that can be sometimes a bit more queer than what we imagine to be gratitude.
Than just a sentimental Hallmark card.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
So this looking twice, yes, it allows you to see through things the presence of God. And that's very much what Jesus as the living temple is doing. I think he becomes himself the temple, the place where people encounter God through what he does. And he reaches... The beautiful thing is that, he goes outside the temple, outside the camp, which is also the temple in biblical imagination, to encounter and encounter this man who comes out to him, and then this man comes in, and then he sends him away again.
Yes.
Into the world to bring healing himself. So it's not only the excluded is integrated. It's that once again the excluded is integrated and sent out to be the leaven of a new healed reality, a new world. So inclusion, there's like this boundaries, set-up mentality, systematic ways of looking at things is revealed to be, I would say, inefficient. Not only inefficient because they're acknowledged and they're realities, but they're revealed to be not full enough if they're not meant and lived through a living relationship with God and with each other.
Yes. Yeah. And we can see that because it's a Samaritan too.
Yes.
Everything is restored. All of these boundaries that were there before, not just the purity, but there's an ethnicity here and a religious aspect to this reintegration too, precisely because it's a Samaritan.
Yeah. There was this quote I took from a commentary that I read: "Who we are is God's gift to us, and what we do with our lives is our gift to God." And there's this, idea of return, and the first thing that we are to do is return. It's as simple and as that.
We've got two little quotations to finish off with that are about gratitude, this orientation to gratitude. One of them is by Andrew Harvey, who's an interesting writer. He spent a long time in India in an ashram. He was a friend of a parishioner of Saint-Esprit, and I met him on a couple of occasions. He said, "A heart trained," it's interesting that he uses the word trained, always to be grateful. It's clearly not just a sentiment.
Yeah.
It involves a bit of effort.
Yes, it does.
So a heart trained always to be grateful will also grow more and more humble. It will be fearless in its recognition of how everything it loves, needs, and celebrates streams in a never-ending river of grace from God.
That's very well put.
Yeah. The other one is by Brother David Steindl-Rast, who is an order of St. Benedict, Roman Catholic order here in the United States. He himself is an American citizen, quite elderly now, but he founded an organization for grateful living, very profoundly religiously orientated, but he was also deeply devoted to interfaith work as well. If you want to see his website, it's grateful.org.
That's a big domain.
It's a big domain, yes. A very, very dear friend worked for him for a long time, which is how I first came across him. Anyway, I liked what he said. The root of joy is gratefulness. It's not joy that makes us grateful. It's gratitude that makes us joyful.
That's true.
So this gratitude isn't a bland emotion.
Yeah.
Or a duty.
Yeah.
Say how thankful you are.
Yeah.
It's gratefulness is a bigger orientation than that.
It's interesting when you look back at the Greek, because charis in both time gratitude. Which is grace as well.
Yes. Yes.
So it's very much an experience of grace, gratitude.
And a sort of remembrance too.
Yeah.
Well, there we are.
Well,
that's about it. If there are any questions or comments, do put them under the video or in the chat if you'd like to. We'll certainly keep a keen eye open. But thank you so much for joining us for another study session this evening. We'll be back again next week with another set of readings.
Have a good night. Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Joris. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good night.
Bye-bye for now. God bless. Bye.